was kind of nice having that kind of, I'm not really sure what this is going to be like, because anything that came out of it was a success, in my opinion.
I think that if it had been just a straight course on this is how you write standard science comm non-fiction, I think it would have been a much less rich experience.
It was an experiment, but I think the experiment was really a success.
My name's Dr. Kat Arney. I'm a science writer and broadcaster, and I'm the founder and creative director of First Create the Media. And we're a communications agency that specializes in the life sciences.
Hi, I'm Professor Jennifer Rohn, and I'm a scientist at University College London. I'm interested in urinary tract infection, trying to understand why the bugs cause the disease and what cures we can come up with to help patients.
My name is Brent Foster. I earned my Bachelor's of Science in Neuroscience and minors in Linguistics and Creative Writing from Brigham Young University. Right now I'm working as a laboratory technician at University of Florida's Whitney Laboratory for Marine Bioscience. The main project I'm involved in is looking at comb jellies and the evolutionary origins of nervous systems. So that's pretty cool.
So my background, I trained as a scientist. I did a degree in natural sciences. I did a PhD in developmental genetics, and then decided that life in the lab wasn't really for me, and that I much preferred to talk and to write about science than actually do it. And so I went to work at Cancer Research UK for about 12 years doing science communications, a lot of writing, a lot of talking. I was a media spokesperson. And then a few years ago, I went freelance and set up the agency. So I've basically spent, I guess, 20 years or so communicating stories about science to the world.
My writing experiences, I've written several feature articles for our local newspaper highlighting some of the work that we're doing in the lab. And I really enjoy doing creative nonfiction.
I do an awful lot of writing in my spare time. I really feel like writing is a pleasure and a hobby. And I've been writing professionally for a number of years. I started out doing some freelance writing for various publications like Science and New Scientist and newspapers, magazines, and I like to write about the culture of science more than the facts and figures. So I often will write opinion pieces about how science intersects with society and not necessarily facts. I also do a lot of blogging, which I think is really fun. My blog is almost like an online diary where I try to share my excitement of science and my profession with people who might not know anything about science. So again, I don't blog a lot about my facts and figures of my research, but more about what it's like to be a scientist, cultural aspects of science. I was approached by Enrico Coen, who had this brilliant idea to organize a science writing conference for scientists or for people interested in science writing. And I thought it was a fantastic idea. I've always wanted to organize a writing retreat or a writing workshop, but I had never gotten around to it. Enrico had this great idea, and I was immediately on board because I thought, what a great idea. We are given lots of training as scientists on how to write manuscripts and how to write in the passive voice. The discovery was made, and the human element is often missing from technical science writing, but even technical science writing can benefit from creative flair. So I was really excited by the idea of bringing together writers, different kinds of writers, journalists, sort of novel writers, people who write popular science, bringing them all together in one room. And with delegates who are interested in improving their science writing and making it more creative, making it more engaging, more interesting.
So I was actually in the lab reading an article. It was either Development or Journal of Experimental Biology, something having to do with the research that we're doing in the lab. And I saw there was an advertisement across the top of the article highlighting this creative science writing workshop. And I thought that sounds like something I'd be really interested in. So I took a little divergent, I clicked on it, and I read the description, I took a snapshot of it, and I sent it to my wife, and I said, FYI, I'm probably going to apply to this workshop because it sounds like it would be fun.
I heard about the workshop when Jenny Rohn got in touch with me, and Jenny and I go back a long way. We first connected through a project that she does called Lab Lit, which is talking about stories set in the world of science. So not writing particularly about science, but about scientists and the world they inhabit. And I was kind of really intrigued by this, and we got on really well. And she got in touch when she was setting up the workshop and really sold it to me, saying, it's going to be wonderful. It's going to be in the beautiful countryside. You can escape, just hang out with people and soak yourself for a few days in this world of words and science. And I was completely sold, because I don't really get a lot of time to stop and think and reflect and chat with other people who are really into writing about science more creatively and in an interesting way. And so I'm very glad that I said yes to the opportunity. I think what surprised me the most about the workshop was just the caliber of the conversations and the kinds of writing that the participants were doing. And it was such a lovely opportunity to talk to people that I already know in the world of science writing, and then talk to the other tutors and the other mentors on the course. But also have a really stimulating exchange of ideas with the students, read their writing, and some incredible talent developing there. People just hungry to learn, to experiment, to try and figure out more about how do they use language, texture, storytelling and structure to communicate their ideas. And I think what really did surprise me was just this fascinating mix and how much discussion and exchange there really was.
Who would have thought of putting, novelists and journalists and wannabe scientists together in the same room for a couple of days? It was an experiment, but I think the experiment was really a success.
We were told, this is basically one giant experiment. We're not really sure how this is going to work out, but and then we did that round discussion of what we're all hoping to get out of it, and I thought that was brilliant. That was great, because we had the structure. But then we had a lot of, not free time, but we had a lot of fluidity in what we could do with that time, which I think is very important for the creative process and for the writing process in general. I think the highlight for me really was getting to have some of those informal conversations with the people who were there. I think some of my best discussions and conversations were probably over the dinner table or over lunch or something, where I would sit with a different group each time and have the chance to talk to a whole bunch of different people about all sorts of different things.
For me, the most surprising thing was we had writers from different disciplines. So we had popular science writers, we had journalists, we had novelists, everything in between. And I think for me, what was really surprising was there were a lot of commonalities that I never thought about before. Even though I personally do creative writing, I do journalism, I write novels, but I had never really thought about how all of these things have things in common and common strategies. And having it all laid out like that was really eye-opening for me. I think it was eye-opening for everybody else too.
I think one of the highlights for me was really the opportunity to sit down with other writers, the mentors and the students, and really think about what makes a good piece of writing. So not just critiquing the students' writing, but actually critiquing essays written by some pretty big name writers. And it was fascinating to dig into them and think, okay, what works, what doesn't work, what is the narrative here? And my favorite one of those was the essay that we looked at from Karen Joy Fowler, her essay King Rat. And the more we went into it, the more we realized the incredible writing, just layer upon layer, the skill of her writing. And then we got to talk with her. We got to have a Zoom call with her and ask all the questions that had been bubbling up in our conversations as we'd been unpicking her piece. How much of this was planned? How much of this was a happy accident? And were you thinking about all the layers of the metaphor? That was such a great experience. And she's incredible talent and was really generous with sharing her knowledge and her experiences.
I think what I'll take away from the workshop is this idea that you really have to feed your passions. So, as a really busy scientist, I'm doing a lot of teaching, I get bogged down in the day-to-day, and I really sometimes neglect the things that keep me happy. And I know that writing is one of those things. It's always been one of those things. And I think that well, takeaway is that you really have to work on it. You have to give yourself the space and the time to do these sorts of life-affirming hobbies. For me, that's writing, but I think it's probably true for anyone. If there's something that really, really makes you happy, it doesn't matter how busy you are, you've got to carve out some time for that.
For me, it really, I hope to keep the connections that I've made. You know, being there with this kind of tight-knit community was just absolutely wonderful for me. You know, walking away, it's like I'm not alone in the world. there are other people like me, other scientists, other writers who like pairing those two things.
I think the thing I'll take away from the workshop is just the importance of finding the time to stop, to think, to read, to reflect, to talk with like-minded people about the craft of writing. Why do some pieces work? Why don't pieces work? How can we be more creative about how we talk about science? You know, science is our way of understanding the world. It's an endless source of stories and fascination and incredible, brilliant ideas.